see me, Richard?
I can always see you there. I think we're live because it's saying live at the top right hand screen on my little deck.
Yes, yeah.
Look at that. And that just proves that we are live.
What somebody just said.
Exactly. Just important information from outside of the world. How are you today, Shushing? You well?
Yes, I am good. It's day 4.
It's
Okay,
day four out
perfect.
of seven. We're
Okay,
doing
we are
pretty well
also
on this.
live.
I know we've had some technical challenges early on in the week, but I think we might have nailed it right now. So hopefully we get some feedback on that, but I think we've nailed it.
I think we're live now. Guys, if you can see us, wherever channel you are in, let us know where you are, please, because we cannot see your faces, but we can see your comments to us.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Yeah, so here we are, day four. I'm excited. So what are we going to be talking about today, Shishing? What's on the menu
What's
of
on
what
the
we're going to
menu?
break
I
down?
think we're going to start off today. Actually, we had a few questions on.
Hmm.
So, what I want to do as well today is perhaps let's do a quick re-intro as well while we're doing what we're doing, because I know there's some people joining in for the first time
Yeah.
today, especially on Instagram, because it hasn't worked for the last few days. So Instagram people, if you tried to sign in earlier this week and it hasn't worked, we are going to post all of the videos again next week. We'll start posting them live on Monday again. So go on there next week. You can catch all of the replays.
Hmm.
And for everybody else who's been here, thank you so much for being here with us this week. So essentially this week, what Richard and I want to do is to share with you some of the experiences that we've had been in the fashion industry in sustainability for the last 20 years, and kind of just talk a little bit about what is happening in the industry, what we can learn from it, and also how we can build better brands based on what we've experienced in the last 20 years. So hopefully you guys find it useful. And if you have any questions for us, just put them into the chat. We'll have a look at them. If we don't see them now, we'll have a look at them after, and then we'll get your questions answered over the week. So we'll go live every single day this week at 12, so at noon Central European time, which is now for about 20-25 minutes every day. So today until Sunday. So hopefully see you on one of the sessions. Right, Richard, let's go. What are we talking about
Fantastic. So
today?
should I introduce myself a little bit then for the new people that have just
Yes.
tuning in today? So my name's Richard Liu. I've been working in the industry for over 20 years in merchandising, buying, and product development positions. Most recently, I've been working as a consultant, helping startups and existing brands really on their sustainable journey with their merchandise challenges and also where their brand sits inside the market to find out where the roadblocks are and help them unblock that. But before working with global brands like Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger, Ralph Lauren, and working internationally all over the world in the Middle East, also all around Europe, etc. So I've got a wide breadth of knowledge that I'm really happy to be sharing with Shushing on this journey.
Yeah, you come from the sort of more business side of fashion, don't you, rather than sort of the creative side. So I think that's why we decided to do this together as well, because I've got more the creative side, and sustainability is my main driver, and that kind of mission and purpose is my main driver. But actually combining what we know from both sides could be very powerful, I think, for brands to be able to get more insight into. So quick intro of me. So I've been in sustainability and fashion for the last 18 years. I've launched a sustainable brand back in 2007. Knowing nothing about fashion or sustainability or business for the matter. So I've learned in the sort of the past 20 years how to do sustainability, how to run a fashion brand, and also how to market a fashion brand, because I also run a digital marketing agency as well. So I help sustainable brands get more visibility and sales through sort of strategically thinking about their marketing. That was one thing that I did not do when I was running my brand. I didn't do it very well. So this is what I help now sustainable brands do, because I believe that we need to have more sustainable brands take over the market. At the moment, it's only about 3%. So we need to kind of make it 50 at least, or make it not make it a norm anymore and actually make it sort of the standard everything should be. I think at this point to become sustainable if it's not already. So that's where we're coming from. So today, shall we start? So yesterday we talked about pricing, and today we're going to talk a little bit more about engagement and visibility and how to turn that into sales. But I want to start with answering some questions that we had in. Do you want to start with your question, or do you want me to share the question that one of the listeners had yesterday? Actually, I can't find it right now. Do you want to start with your question?
Okay.
I'll find the other question, and then
Perfect.
we get that answered for you.
I'll start with this one. It's from Saria in London, and she says that she's on the earliest part of developing her brand. She's really just new out of university, and she wants to know what is like a reasonable kind of strategy and idea for like launching her own brand. She wants to start off primarily by doing everything online until she gets like wholesale and everything a bit later. But what would you suggest, and what would be like a reasonable budget? I think she wants to kind of understand from that. And she really has just the really creative side of this whole part of the journey. She hasn't had any of the business acumen or any of the kind of the strategic stuff really in her education.
Oh, sorry, let me turn that off. I think when you're starting off, from my point of view, maybe you feel differently about this. I think as a startup brand, I wouldn't spend any money. First of all, I'll try to do majority of my marketing myself, if possible, because I think when we are talking to our customers, and it's all about engaging with our customers to find out what they really want right in the beginning. So the more we speak to people directly, the more we'll find out what actually they want from us, or what styles, so like what is attractive to them. Because I think a lot of brands come out in the early stages, they have this idea, being more creative and driven from that side, say, oh, well, I'm going to design this amazing collection, and then they get out there and they spend a lot of marketing money on marketing that collection, and in the end nobody wanted it, or the pricing is wrong, or the positioning is wrong, and or just the styles is wrong. And so I think in the early stages, definitely go out there by yourself and talk to people, whether social media or direct. Even if you talk to people one-on-one, or that is marketing as well. Even talking to your friends is a kind of marketing, right? So to find out what people really find, what appeals to people. Would they buy your products? Indeed. And instead of spending lots of money on marketing. And I think the other thing that is really important in the early stages is to really communicate your values. Why are you doing what you're doing? How are you different to anybody else? Because a t-shirt is a t-shirt. So what's going to make your products better than other people's? Usually it's the story. Or if you as a brand owner come out and speak about your product yourself, and you show the process of making it, then people can appreciate you for you and why you're doing what you're doing, and also appreciating the process of creating your garment. So I think, telling that story and engaging with people in a more kind of authentic way in the early stages, I think helps.
I love that answer, and I think that resonates so much as well. I think in general from shopping experiences, when you think about what are the favorite brands that you like, or your favorite shopping experiences, maybe quite a big part of that isn't about the clothing item that you're buying at the end of the day. It could be about the shopping experience. It could be about the environment that you create. It's all those kind of things that come together. So I think it's really important to touch the flesh and to get close as you can to your customers to find out what they really need. It's perfect. Really nice.
Yeah, and I couldn't find exactly, Anne-Sophie, if you're listening, sorry, I could not find your question here. I know it's there on LinkedIn, but I remember part of it is to communicate, like, how can we get people to want to buy your products, which may be higher price point because you're producing it using ethical labor or sustainable materials. So therefore, or maybe even perhaps made in UK, so your labor cost is a bit higher. How do we communicate that with people so they understand what you're producing and why you're doing it? Have you got an answer to that, Richard, for Anne-Sophie? And I can,
I love that, and I think almost in the question itself, like the answer already lies there. It's like, make sure people know your values. Make sure that one of your big selling points is it's made here locally in Britain. I'm using local materials. like all those key core values that you're mentioning to us to talk about how do we amplify them. Those are exactly the things that you need to make sure is front and center of your brand, front and center on the labels that you're using and the communications that you're working with, to make sure that people can see that value. And I think especially in this kind of this moment that we're currently living in, this global moment where looking after local businesses, looking after local producers, it's really high on the list of things that are on the tip of people's minds. I think it's like a really nice, easy, authentic way to communicate with about your brand, and especially if that is one of your core values is. So I think you're onto a home run there with this philosophy. I think you need to make sure it's front and center as part of your brand.
Yeah, and I think we spoke about it yesterday as well when we talked about pricing, that actually do not think about you being in competition with somebody of the sort of the less sustainable brands, because you are your own unique brand. And I think a lot of brands come out here and they want to do the right thing, but they end up competing over price. And then you put yourself into that same bracket as everybody else, but you're actually not competing as such. You are creating something that's more unique.
Yeah, and I think as well, you can see that in products that are out there. Like you can buy 100, they can buy 1,000 different sweaters out there, which are 100% wool. But sweaters that are made on the Aran Islands by their small knitting communities there, they're specifically from there. They come with their own certification and the wool mark, the British wool mark, all that stuff. Then obviously you're paying a little bit more of a premium. So, if you can figure out a way to make sure that that's incorporated into whatever products you're making, where maybe you list off exactly where it was made, the artisan that helped with it, that adds value, because it makes it authentic and a real something that is desirable just by like your brand ethos. It becomes desirable in that kind of way. So that's how you can separate your item, which obviously make it desirable, but make sure that the story behind it is authentic and it's clear and people can buy into it and love it.
Yeah, and I think it's also going back to communicating with your potential clients and knowing your positioning as well. Like, what is it that they care about as well? If you very strongly care about a specific thing, it doesn't mean that your buyers necessarily do. So I think it's communicating effectively with them about what they care about as well. I'm not saying that you should just make up a story or a greenwash or anything like that. It's about you authentically, because we all care about different things. So maybe if your product is, let's say, reducing textile waste, for example, but then all your buyers, what they care about is to marine conservation, then maybe there's a disconnect between your product and your customers. So how do you communicate? It's finding out. I think it's doing that basic homework that we spoke about yesterday, and actually every day, to really establish what is it that your customers want to find out about. What do they care about, and give them that in a way. If that's also something that you care about, and if there's a disconnect, maybe then you have to retarget your customer base to something that you care about. For me, it's textile waste. So I have to find out what those people who care about textile waste, what would they buy, and not create something that they would not necessarily buy. So kind of line up your product with your company ethos and your customer, and have that kind of perfect intersection between the three.
Indeed, I agree, and I think I can never not put enough emphasis on product is key at the end of the day, like desirability, desirable product. Because I know that this is how people shop first. They want to find products that they love and they have a connection with, and it's got and then the fact that it has a beautiful story behind it, that's an add-on on as well. I think it's like how we mentioned on Monday, we're speaking about like Stella McCartney. It's like she's not a sustainable brand that's luxury. She's a luxury brand that is sustainable. So make sure that the products that you're producing, they are desirable. They have a unique selling point, whether it's like if you're a graphic designer, make sure that that part of your story is front and center. And that's what will separate you from the rest, because otherwise we're just talking about a cotton t-shirt or a knitted bag, but actually your personality plus your story is what the unique selling point will be for your brand. So don't worry about it just being the quality of the fabric. It will be the unique selling point of your personality and your brand values and your stories, which will push you forward and more front and center than other things out there which are quite mundane.
Yeah, but it's the quality as well, isn't it? When we're starting out, we have to have a good quality product, because there's no point spending all that time and effort in creating something that is not of good quality, and you get that customer and they buy it once and they're like, oh, I can get that elsewhere for much cheaper. So you need to actually be able to produce quality at a good price so you can still make a profit, have a good
100%.
brand. So I mean, there's a lot of things to think about, but
Yeah.
essentially that it comes back to your brand clarity again. Again, this is something that we keep reiterating. Be super clear on what is it that you want to do in your brand.
Yeah.
Who do you want to target? What kind of price range or what kind of positioning within the market do you want to place your products? Yeah. And then make a desirable, good quality product based on that.
I love that. When we say it like that, it just sounds so easy. when we say like that, obviously, why is everybody not just doing exactly this? It's like a very easy, tried and tested formula. Like, why are we not all doing it?
Yeah, I mean, it is easy. That's always, but it comes down to desirability, like you say. It comes down to knowing your customers.
Indeed.
And knowing your customers is like
keeping that loop going through. Indeed. And keeping the loop going on all the time, the feedback loop where you're taking notice of the market, seeing where the market's moving, where your customers are moving, but just keeping that dialogue going all the time, because yeah, you have to. This is what's unique about this particular business, is it's never the same one season after the next or 2 years in a row. There's are consistencies, but there's a lot of things that are changing and it's always moving forward. I think that's the beauty of the industry. So definitely keep your eyes open and keep the ability to be present and to work with new technologies, see what the new trends are happening, and just be aware of what's happening with wars and not wars and peace and all that kind of stuff there. Be aware of all of it, because it all ties into people's ability to find the joy in fashion or find the joy in art and products.
Yeah, and I guess when you say keep your eyes on the trends, doesn't mean that you have to follow it, but I think having an awareness of what's happening around you is useful. Or could we create something in silo, like in our own little bubble, do you think? Because that's sometimes when you are creative that you create the best work by producing out from, inside out versus taking too many influences from outside in. What are your thoughts on that?
Really wow. So this is, it's kind of it's the kind of question where I think you see like a bit more dramatic changes the higher up, say, in the fashion spectrum you go. When you get to more avant-garde brands, you will see a dramatic difference from what's happening one season to the next. Like if you imagine brands like Victor and Royal for like Maison Margiela, they're very different from season to season, but they have a core in the center, which is they're all about recycling and they're all about taking old things and make vintage things and making them very new and luxurious. So that is their core red thread through it. When it comes to trend, there's of course things which can affect you, where you see like what's happening now in the world politically, and then you see what's also happening, music and film and theater. All these things have a touch on how people consume and how they want to relate to, and those things also show your values. If you really feel strongly about the LGBTQ, you feel something about the Wicked kind of movie, that could be something which you don't do directly, but you could have a reference, maybe use that particular shade of green, all those things you can do to show support through your brand and through your work as well. It doesn't have to be so literal as in actually doing a direct collaboration, but there's lots of different ways that you can connect with people and resonate with people and show people your values. And I think that's a beautiful thing to have in this world, where it's not just gigantic faceless brands, that you can really get to know the personalities and understand the real values and how they affect and work with people as well.
And I guess that's, back to knowing your core values as well and having that clarity, right? So that could be essentially still, even if you're following the trends to a certain level, you still have your red thread going through your story. Why are you doing this? And then that needs to be the stronger part rather than the trend. So the trend is kind of secondary to support your business. But then I think that's when a lot of brands get lost as well. If they're not clear about why they're doing what they're doing, they keep sort of chasing different trends. So I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this. And there is no consistency in that brand, and also no growth within that brand, because you're always new. From season to season, 10 years later, you're still new.
Exactly. And I think you've nailed it there. I'm not going to name any names, but there's a very, 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 very famous, well, not very famous, but let's say a brand that should be much further ahead in its journey that I've been following since, like, let's say for the last more than 20 years. And they started off as like just an outerwear brand. And then they became, in the early 2000s, they became like a lifestyle brand. But this is not a global brand. This is like a brand which is like mostly known in Europe around here. And then they moved to become more of a lifestyle brand, but they forgot about their main business before that was just outerwear. So they wanted to do like dresses and stuff like that. And each season they would have an incredible best-selling dress, or the next season they would have the key pants would be their thing, and it would be like the cool polo shirt would be the next season. And the problem why they couldn't grow is because you can't dedicate a space in a store or in a department store and say, we want to take all of this brand, and out of the 50 options or 60 options you want to sell us, only one of them may or may not be a winner that season. And sometimes it's zero of them. And I think that they lost their way, where they were very clear they were just only doing outerwear, and they forgot to take care of that particular part of the business. And that's taking care of that. They didn't have a good base to grow and experiment with these other things. It became that the outerwear was the small part, and the experiment was the too bigger part. And that's why the brand, to this day, it's okay, but it's been bought twice. It's really, I wouldn't say struggling. It's struggling sales wise because it can't grow. Because when people look at that brand, they don't know what to go to that brand for, because it can be different this season, different next.
And I guess that each season or each year at least, you'll have to end up finding a new customer base as well. You know, the people that come back for the core, and they understand your aesthetics, and they understand your values, and they understand why you're doing this. You have to keep reinventing. The more reinvention you do, the more you have to start again.
Indeed. And then to reconvince people as well. So it's really not a double-edged sword. It should be one of those things where, especially when you're starting out, do your research, lay out your store, see what happens. You get the feedback immediately about what's working, and then you know, okay, those are the ones we hold on to. Those are the key shapes we use again for next season. Those are the key shapes that we use, and maybe we update the fabrics and keep the season 1 fabrics and have season 2 new fabrics and colors. And that's how you build up your brand, and that's how you build up your reputation, because the people that you're selling to would want to see what you've done really well with last season, what's new in exactly what I have already, plus minus extra. So I think that's how you can do it in a more stable growth way. And if you're lucky enough that everything's working perfect, but also then don't just completely go and remake a brand new 40-piece collection. You can actually maybe only have to make another 15 for the next season, because actually you're going to use the 25 as a base to start off, because it's really solid on the sales that you're having. You know, so it's yeah.
And I guess from sustainability point of view as well, it also means that you don't have to get rid of all of your stock or put everything into your next season's sell, right? Because this happens a lot. They create the full collection and they either burn it, or if they don't want to reduce the prices, they end up burning it because they don't want other people to look at their sales, or, you know, so it's actually a fairly good, it's a very good strategy to have those core products follow through the seasons for many reasons.
Exactly. And I think, like I said, for all the years working in big brands and with collections as well, and especially if we're talking about a global landscape, I mean, plus or minus a few key things in your wardrobe, outerwear, let's say, is one of them, which definitely is dramatically different from season to season. You can just talk about menswear. A men's Oxford shirt in spring, summer is exactly the same waist as in autumn, winter. Your jeans, which are 11.5 or 12.5 ounces in spring, summer, it's the same weight. So there's a lot of continuality between seasons as it is. And I think where a lot of brands have been really having difficulty with their over-optioning and overproducing is they've been trying to reinvent something which is, you know, I have a black pair of jeans and I can use that any time of the year. I don't need a black pair of jeans in a lighter weight for summer. It's just a black pair of jeans. And I think this global customer that does travel and does move around, they need more in between transitional moments and more resort moments, kind of things that could take you from plus or minus 5 or 10 degrees, but we don't really have so much of the extremes anymore. So I think that will give brands a lot more, let's say, comfort and consistency in when they're developing the process, instead of just oversourcing and having so many fabrics and so many different options in there, which are not so necessary.
Yeah, and especially as a small brand, this is how we do our business.
Exactly.
You're kind of spreading yourself a little bit too thin. It's much better to have a good base core collection, and then some kind of new ideas, maybe 10%, would you say? Because when we look at this collection pyramid, it's like right at the top, right? So 5% or so. What is the standard? What do you think? What do you think is a good strategy in terms of the product pyramid? If you have your core in the middle,
I think if you can have, like, based on the options that you're going to be showing, or the options that you're going to present it to a client or to the world, if you can have, say, 45% of that covered between your carryover, never out of stock, not never out of stock, but your carryover core products that people fully recognize in core colors or in core shapes, That's really almost solidifying 50% of all the sales that you can get. And then after that, then you can have, say, another 20% on top of that, which can be, 25% on top of that, which can be seasonal updates of what your core products are in different fabrications, in different prints and details. You can expand it out more then use then the top part to really experiment and expand and some new ideas that you want to introduce to the market, which is still on brand for what you're doing. And then the whole story will still make sense because, like I said, at least 45% of the offering is styles and shapes that are recognizable to your customers. And it doesn't mean they have to be in exactly the same color. It means it can be the same shape, but in an updated fabric with updated button details. There's a lot you can do inside this by keeping exactly the same pattern. You know, if you have a hero dress shape or a hero pant shape silhouette, which is absolutely yours, give that in more options, you know, and the people that are resonating with that. And that's how fashion works. I mean, of course, we see the runway shows, but I think we have to really think about the pyramid. It's the top 8% of the business. But it's not 15 or 8% of the sales. It's maybe less than one. The big work is done from the consistency every single day thing. So not everybody in the world is going to a red carpet. Not everybody in the world is going to a premiere. we're going to Marks and Spencer's if you're lucky, or Lidl if you're not so lucky. So this is just real life.
Yeah, and I guess that top 1%. Yeah. A lot of that is sort of gifted as well to like celebrities to wear. You're not even selling those. It's just a show to give you the publicity. Can we just wrap up here? I'm a little bit aware of the time as well. Like, what do you think in terms of publicity? Can we just touch on that very quickly? Like, is all publicity good publicity for your brand? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that used to be like a very not old-fashioned, but a very kind of dated way of kind of how they used to look at it. There wasn't any bad, there wasn't any misses. The brands out there, it's better than, say, buying billboards. That's how they kind of used to value things. But I think now where we have a lot more values attached to brands and communication, and especially where we have all these tools in our hands that can see all around the world instantly, there's some horror stories out there which say absolutely not. It's not good that all publicity is bad. I think even if we look back to H&M with their big scandal with the photo shoot with the black child with the hoodie that said you're the funniest monkey in the jungle, that kind of stuff. That caused all their stores in South Africa to be rioted on, smashed up, and shut down for months while they tried to fix and apologize for what happened there. And then on top of that,
it must have gone through. I mean, there's a few other brands who've done similar sort of things as well. We have who else did Balenciaga did something quite controversial as well, didn't they? And
yeah, and it really, really hit them hard. I think it was where they had the children in kind of bondage outfits for the teddy bears and all this kind of stuff like that. And then they had all the wording on the side, which was like the children can consent, all this kind of stuff like that. So really damaging, crazy value stuff to put out there. And then I think also at the same time as handling that situation, then trying to blame the photographer that was like the first time he was working with them and being paid $500 to do the whole global campaign shoot. And this is the person that you're going to blame on. And there's not anybody else or any other hierarchy that's going to go through that to look at it. So there is bad publicity. Let's put it like that. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess it's pretty hard. And in the global market, everybody is on social media now. And if somebody picks something up, and it just spreads like wildfire. But it did give them some publicity. And then maybe people were not aware of this brand before, but now they're aware, maybe for the wrong reason. But
yeah.
Be careful with your stories, guys. That's what we say.
Indeed. Yeah. We live in a global marketplace, and what's happening in Asia, we can see it 10 minutes after it's happened, which is a fantastic thing. What's happening in Africa, we can see it. What's happening in Paris or anywhere, we can see it now. And that's not the way it used to be. Everything used to be just siloed in its own countries. So it's good that we have the visibility. It just makes brands more accountable, or anybody working in this environment more accountable. So yeah, we can find out.
Yeah, and also that transparency. And I think we can sort of look back to what we were talking about in the beginning as a small brand, and also we can utilize this. This is actually a very powerful tool. Utilize social media to talk about the things that really matters to you. I mean, whether it doesn't really matter what it may be, if it's something that you really want to stand up for, then, talk about it.
Yeah.
If you want to, maybe you don't want that kind of publicity, but I think we all have an opinion. If you feel strongly about something, be brave enough
Yeah.
talk about it. I think to stand for something, and I think a brand that stands for something is when they get a good customer base that is loyal, rather than a brand that is a bit kind of
A bit
in
flaky.
between on everything and don't express anything and don't have a good story, just a kind of a nice product.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
it's hard to grow from that space.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%, except for Kanye West needs to stop talking about his brand. Because
You just need to stop altogether, just
yes, indeed.
disappear. That's what
I think we've all had enough of that one.
Yeah. All right, so we've gone for just about half an hour, and we like to keep them short so you guys can still go ahead and have your lunch, whatever you do during your lunchtime. But I want to share here finally is that if you guys want to find out more about the work that Richard is doing and get some support in building your brand, we have a new program. Is a 30-day coaching program starting on Monday with Richard and myself, where we drop one module every single week and at the beginning of the week, so you can do it in your own time. At the end of the week, we'll have a live session where we'll answer your questions and go through your homework and so on, and really build the foundational kind of work in your brand so that you can grow with more consistency, with a clearer mind in
that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, we don't want you to spend 20 years learning about this like we did. We just want to give you the tools, give you the strategies, and then off you go. And also, just to mention as well, we work only, can I say this? Like, we want to work with sustainable brands. Those are the brands we want to grow. So if you are actually not in that space and you look at things like differently and you're just driving profits and don't really care, then maybe this is slightly might not be right for you. But if you want to at least transition into sustainability and want to care more about the work that you do, focus up. There's a link, buildabettterbrand.vip. Check it out. We're starting on Monday, so it'll be great. All right, I'll see you all tomorrow. And also, if you have any questions for us, do put it into whatever channel you're on, and then we'll look through them after this, and then we'll get them answered for you in the next few days. If we don't have time to do the next few days, we'll send you a message. We'll make sure that we answer that question for you.
Perfection. Have a great day, everybody, and see you tomorrow, same time. Fantastic.
Thanks, Shashay. All right. Bye. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.